Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we are rejoined in our first ever two-part episode, by Farid, sorry,
Mhm.
who is going to continue telling us about his adventures uh, creating a digital ticketing service for the Indian Railways in the 1980s. Adil, we're going to remind our listeners where we left off.
All right. So yesterday we talked about the conditions, the situations, the geopolitical uh, challenges, the limitations of the hardware, the economic state of the country. So and the lack of the training in this specific discipline of the computer science. So when this system was being designed, the country was facing a lot of challenges. The country was going through a lot of turbulence in terms of its positioning itself in the geopolitical on the geopolitical map. So IBM was doing its business in India, a lot of American companies, but because of the socialist revolution in the country, those companies was forced out of the country, and there were a lot of restrictions on import by the government, the Indian government itself, and by the American and the European governments. So under those circumstances, this particular ticketing system was designed, developed, and implemented. It was one of its kind, very unique system. It's online transaction processing system in real time. So,
I
and
should
of course,
remind the listeners, especially the younger listeners, when you say online, this is a network of a couple mainframes and some terminals, text-only terminals. This is not, there is no internet. The internet will not, the World Wide Web will not be invented for another 15-ish years.
Mhm.
There's internet, but there is no World Wide Web. There are no websites. There's email.
Correct. So the way the system was designed and available to the common public was, yes, there were super mini, as we used to call these super mini VMS systems, and all the terminals were connected to the hard wire. So basically, there were very, very long Ethernet cables on which these terminals were sitting. And yes, there was no fancy GUI environment available, but we managed to have a proper form. Proper forms were there. They were not character based. They were like proper forms. There were fields. So you could see it on the screen itself. And we leverage the terminal hardware capabilities through the escape sequences and highlighting the specific areas of the screen, and then the cursor positioning, capturing the terminal input. So there was a lot of programming done in terms of designing those quote unquote the GUI environment. And yeah, there were a lot of validations. So it was a form-based system, online system. So if you happen to enter into the reservation center, as we used to call it, you'll find just like a whole lot of ticketing agents are sitting around, and they are sitting in front of a terminal through which they're entering the data. And the data capture was the passengers or whoever wishes to reserve a ticket, they will have to fill out a physical form, hand over that form to the clerk. The clerk will duplicate that information, typing the information into the system, and then it will create the ticket or do the reservation. So that was
So,
the front end.
right. And so we left off last time. We had talked about how the DBAs had added too many users to the system, and it caused a crash and a riot that required the Indian National Guard to come out and restore order, just because you ran out of RAM, and that the system went down. We talked about how ticketing was locked for 20 seconds in order to print a ticket, and if it didn't print, that person was that was out of luck. And so you had a case, which is I think where we left off, where the printer was bad, and somebody had waited 3 days in line to get a ticket, and they got there and they had filled out their form and everything was right, but the printer was bad, so they lost their ticket, and then they had to wait another day in line. And you had described how heartbreaking that was. And I think we left off with that you then went back and changed the operational procedure to make sure that everybody tested their printer before the ticket window opened in the morning. Could we keep going along the lines of, now, okay, so you've got the ticket windows open, and if I remember stories from when we used to work together and you would tell me these things, as soon as you told the ticketing agents that they had the ability to print things before the tickets opened, you immediately ran into a corruption issue where
That is correct. So yes, so during our conversations with the union leaders and others, so they were constantly asking us the questions around what can system track, what are its capabilities in terms of the timing, the reporting, etc. And we didn't realize the depth of those questions after until much later, when we realized that when the system became operational. And one thing I would like to mention, that the union concern was the computers or the implementation of this system is going to cost the jobs for the booking clerks, because they were under the impression that the computers will be doing all the work, and therefore there will be no need of having these human reservation clerks. And that was proved to be very, very, very wrong, because when the system became operational and it brought the ease in terms of booking a ticket, before that people had to wait like 4 hours, 5 hours in front of the window. With the first implementation of the system, when we did the time study, the queue in and queue out, the average wait time any individual would spend is about 20 minutes. So a person joined the queue or the line, and then by the time he gets the ticket, a printed ticket in his hand, that was our criteria, it was 20 minutes. We did the time study, and it was a big, big, huge success in terms of bringing in the comfort and the confidence of the people that, yes, I can go there and I don't have to spend my entire day. I can just get in and out within 20, 25 minutes. And as a result of that, the system became very popular. And then the government or Indian Railways ended up hiring one full shift of the operators. So it was, before that they were running 2 shifts. Now they started to run 3 shifts, and they had to hire additional people. So it created the jobs. It created more jobs, put it that way.
Interesting. And then I remember from conversation yesterday, where there simply weren't enough trains for all the people who wanted to go, which is why people were waiting in line 2-3 days out to book a ticket 60 days in the future. That, simply reducing the line time didn't change the fact that there simply weren't enough tickets. There weren't enough trains and there weren't enough seats.
That is correct.
Computerizing didn't do anything there.
Computerization simply eased the pain on the people, those who wanted to travel, those who wished to travel, and they could not found themselves courageous enough to go out and weather this kind of chaotic situation to get through the lines and fight off to get the ticket, or spend enormous amount of money to get the tickets. A lot of corruption was there, so they could not. Now the people got encouraged that, hey, it is much easier. I can go there and I can simply purchase my ticket in a reasonable amount of time. So that was that. And coming to the corruption part of it, so before the computerization of the system, so of course the tickets were pre-printed, paper tickets, and they were hogged by the clerks, and those who were offered the bribe, they will be sold on the black market. So that was happening. But now with the computerization, there was no pre-printed ticket. The ticket has to be printed by the printer. That was the first step in reducing the corruption. However, then of course the human beings are smarter than the computers. It is always a race between the man and machine. So people found, okay, if that be the case, I will come in early. I will come at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and I will
Hmm.
print a ticket. I will book the tickets with some fake names and IDs. And later on, since system allowed certain modifications, which we started to turn off later on, like we call it like a correction in name and age kind of things. So people or the lot of clerks started to print the tickets or do the reservation before the center would open. The center would open on weekdays at 9 a.m. and on weekends at 10 a.m. So this is what started to happen, and I'm really really happy. Even in those deep layers of corruptions, there were some really really honest officers. So one of the officer I was working with, Mr. A.K. Awasti, and then he called me up, and in our evening meetings, we used to have daily evening meetings around 4:30, 5 p.m. just to go over what has happened, what can we do to improve the system, what are the challenges, new functionality, etc. So during that meeting, he asked me that we have been running some reports, and looks like there are over 600, 700 tickets are being issued before 6 a.m. What is going on? The center is not
Clearly,
even
it's a
open.
bug.
So center is not even open. What's going on? And of course, the report would clearly show the terminal number, the person who is logged in there, it's
Mhm.
identified, etc. So it was a significantly detailed enough report to figure out what was going on there.
When you say 700 tickets, if I remember earlier, yesterday, you were saying the daily ticket rates were somewhere in the order of 4 or 5 thousand tickets a day. So this is this is over 10%.
Right, in the initial phase, but
Yeah.
when fully the system became fully functional, then the number of tickets those were issued in a day, it reached like 40 to 50,000 tickets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it did reach to that level.
So that's interesting.
So
So the digital ticketing allowed you to about 8 or 9x the total number of tickets sold.
mhm.
Does that mean that before trains would leave with empty seats that just became worthless, or did the ticketing, like in the US, there's conductors on the cars, and if you don't have a ticket, he's got a book and he'll punch you out a ticket right there. Was
That's
that
what
something?
was happening mostly. That's what was happening mostly. So and of course that was all cash. There was no credit card.
Hmm.
There was no credit card, there was no check writing, etc. It was all cash dealing. And
Mm-hmm.
cash dealing, you know how it goes. Cash dealing, it has a lot of big openings for corruption. Right? There is no accountability, etc. So with this one, when we started looking at those reports, and Mr. Avasti said that what can we do to prevent this thing from happening? And then I said, well, in the computer, we have a lot of opportunities. The computer can check the time. It knows what time of the day it is, and it can prevent from the transaction from going forward. He said, okay. And I remember that it was Friday evening or Friday evening. So I spent the entire night
Mm.
writing 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 the code. And it was very interesting name. And then it was kind of funny name too, because one of my hardware colleague, he came around because we used to go for dinner together. He said that, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing? I said, I had a meeting with Mr. Avasti, so I'm not going home. By the way, we were all young that time, all the engineers, unmarried, and most of us were living with our parents, so we didn't have, and there was really not much to do outside. So we used to spend nearly 16, 17, sometime even days on site itself. We would not go home. We would not even go home. We would just stay and decide. We were given the room, and then we were given the perks in terms of you can go out for free breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we were just there, just working.
Some things
And
never change. Young
The original
engineers.
hackathon.
uh, and I should point out here that you're talking about so the system only ran when the tickets windows were open, which you said was like 9 to 5 or 10 to 5, depending upon the day. And so you're now pulling an all-nighter, and it's not that you don't even have enough computers to have a second environment. So you are hacking all night on a Friday night in production.
that is correct. Yes, that was correct. So we were even all the development work. So all the, as we were writing the code, all the compilation would be happening on the same system as the production boxes. There was no second environment. In the same, and there were like 8 developers on my team, and there were other the operational staff, the database maintainer, the report generators, the chart generators. Everything was happening on the same super mini computer within that small amount of RAM. So that was, and then I have to give credit to the deck engineers too, that they wrote the VMS that it was really robust. Right? It did survive that kind of utilization, that kind of usage. So really good hardware.
So I distracted you. So you spent all night. You wrote up this funny named thing.
Yes.
You may
So
or may
it
not.
was the name was okay. So all the the processes would come up, and then I would call it. I said, what should I call it? So there was the functionality of the process hibernation. Process hibernation. So if the process is in so you remember that we still have to boot the. It was basically the way it was architected was there may be like 100 users, but all 100 users are sharing exactly the same process address space. Remember, we don't have much memory through the. It's called global maps in VMS jargon. Uh, so it was all loaded. So the MCP, the control program, is simply loaded in memory, and all of these there was not like separate process for each user. Each user will be having a slice or a time slice into that master control process. So there was only one process. So still we had to bring up that process. We had to load all the train data, all the route data, all the uh, availability ticket, the car data, the routes data. So all this static data needs to be loaded. And of course, some of the data was dynamic, but a lot of data was static. So we just would map it in a specific chunk of or dedicated chunk of memory. And all of these, the logins will be simply sharing all that information. That's how we managed it. So it was not like everybody's having a private copy of that. So, so the hibernation was a concept that you can put a process into a hibernation state. The process will be uploaded in memory, but it will not be allowed to run if the process is hibernating. It will not be allowed to run. It is like suspending a process, put it that way.
Okay.
So so I wrote that routine called UT. All the utility functions were named with the letters UT. So UT Hyber till 8 or 9, depending upon whether it is Sunday or not. So that was the name of the Fortran subroutine, and then that became the longest name in the system. So yes, so that's how we started to control the tickets from being issued before the system opens. But that presented a smaller challenge. And in fact, when I was writing that code, my hardware buddy, and he said that, okay, you're writing this thing. What is the use? I said the use is, of course, we are going to reduce the corruption, and it is going to create a level field for everybody to get their fair right to have a ticket, and it will, of course, eliminate a lot of bribery. Then he said that, okay, what are you talking about? So he started to be a little bit more aggressive. He said, what are you talking about? know that such and such and such and such person, they are working with these ticket clerks. So there it is, he was talking about the insider corruption. So there were some individuals, the inside said, like, look at these, I have myself, because hardware and software engineer, we used to go on a round. We used to take a round just to check how the system is running, if anybody needs any help, like that. So he said that many a times when I was on the round, this guy, he was talking to the black black market sellers, and then he was facilitating this kind of things. So I said, regardless, now I'm actually limiting even his ability to go through this route, because nobody will be able to print the ticket at 6 a.m. And when we open the system, say at 9 a.m. sharp, how many tickets maximum we are going to lose? Think about that. Even if you assume that all the clerks are corrupt, so we have about that we had that time 90. So maximum, we are limiting our loss to 90. That everybody is like prepared before the center open, and so they can have only one ticket illegally, right? When the system opens. So at the opening, it is a fair game for everybody, right? So we are limiting. Of course, we are not eliminating it, but we are reducing the amount of corruption, and that's what happened. I said human beings will always find to go around the system, and then so and we cannot help. So we are doing our best effort to just limit this kind of practices. And I said, I really don't care whether in the database, in the area, if that guy is corrupt. I'm working with Mr. Avasti, and we have full support. He's the top guy. And I'm sure he's aware of what's happening around him, but his hands are tied too. He can do only so much to limit the corruption. But I'm happy that he's supporting us. That's the reason I didn't go home today. I'm here writing the code, and then I'll be able to implement. And then once we implement it, we do the little bit of testing, verification, and then we off to the production rollout. So there was no separate QA. We were the developers, we were the QA, we were the verifiers.
And what happened when that system went out? Because I assume, well, I don't assume, but you didn't have product notices and whatnot. It just, the system worked differently the next day. So was there screaming and yelling from the clerks?
Oh, yes. A lot of clerks, they started to we used to call the console room. So the console room phone started to buzz like, hey, what happened? I'm not able to log in. And of course, they were told that time that, yes, this is the expected behavior, and you won't be able to proceed until you'll be able to log on, but you won't be able to do anything until 9 a.m. or 10 if it is Sunday. So yeah, that time they were told.
Did you get any physical threats? Because I imagine in the US, you would, just in my head, stories like this often, and then a mobster shows up and threatens to break your legs if you don't undo the fix.
That happened only once, and not the physical threat, but a different kind of threat. What was happening was when the phase 2 was rolled out. So phase 1 was all terminals, right? And then we had the reservation, cancellation, a little bit of modifications, and the inquiry module. Inquiry module was very, very buggy. And so I spent a lot of time on the inquiry module, basically to check the availability, the status. What is the status? How many tickets are available in real time? So because that was really, really crucial, because that, in my view, was going to provide the transparency, the accuracy of the state of the system. And once we implemented that a year, and it was fully operational, working very, very precisely and accurately, we implemented another system, and that was through, and of course, that time we didn't overload the CPU, the main CPUs, but we brought in the 386 boxes running an operating system called Minix. I don't know if you have heard that one. It's
I think Minix was the thing that they were playing with that eventually became Linux. Yeah.
Yes. So because we brought in there, and then we started to crafted a system and attached a TV monitor. So now a real monitor in which the data can be entered for the ticketing
Mm-hmm.
is now facing the clerk. But still there was a level of corruption that what screen was showing was different from what the lips were saying. If
Ah.
the screen may show the availability, but the clerk is still telling that it's a wait list, right?
Mm.
Or it may be the clerk knows that there are, three trains are leaving for this destination. One train is full, so it will purposefully just enter the one which is full, and it will say that, oh, it is showing a wait list, knowing that the other train has the availability, right?
Yeah.
So with the second level, when we put this Unix machines and have the TV monitors attached to it, that was facing the customers. Now, what clerk is typing is visible to the customers. The people were able to see. So that brought in a little bit more transparency. So the clerk cannot enter a different turn number. Immediately passenger would question, hey, you didn't enter that one. If that be the case, you just check the alternative availability. So this was another level of reducing the corruption.
I love it. And this is the one where mobsters came and threatened you, or
Now, then
no?
that was another, just give me a second. The system.
I I love this. This is the the iterative, just bringing visibility into the system, and the sunshine produces the effect of reduce, because people don't want to be taken advantage of, and so
Mhm,
the by removing the power of the knowledge of control of the
mhm,
knowledge, you without you don't need to bring police into this to tell the ticketing agents not to be corrupt. It's just if people see the ticketing agents are being corrupt with them,
mhm.
then they're able to fight back themselves.
Correct. The transparency allows us to reduce the corruption, right? The monitoring, the transparency is important. So what happened was when the system grew, and then we expanded beyond one location. Now people had to come to Mumbai, in a physical center where they had to book their tickets.
Mm-hmm.
But people are coming from long distance. So we started expanding that by extending the physical communication lines to a different, 15 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles into that one. So started to create, we call the satellite locations. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
had a definition, it's a remote location and satellite location. We had a specific definition. Satellite location will basically fall into the nearby vicinity of the main center, and it would not involve a day-night flip when the train travels through that location.
Mm.
There should not be any day-night flip. If a distance is such that the day boundary changes, then we would call that as a remote location. Remote location, for instance, and there was another term we used to, the pure location. For example, Bombay was a center because Indian Railway, it has many branches, the central branch, the southern branch, the northern region. So it was divided into regions.
Mm-hmm.
So the Hyderabad was part of the central region, Bombay was part of central region, Madras was. So these were all independent systems now. These were all same software, but independent systems. They would have their own database, they would have their own terminal setup, they have own, everything was like independent of each other, so regional basis.
Mm-hmm.
In the phase two, we started to expand our satellite location, basically physically extending the communication lines and just setting up the terminals. There is no computers on there. They're still talking to the mainframe super minis sitting at the Mumbai location. So that was still the case. And then the third phase came in whereby we had to connect a distant location that we call remote, where the possibility of day and night change. So Ahmedabad was one such location, and we started to bring in more networking hardware. That time I started to learn a lot about the mesh network, muxes and switches, etc. And there was a political reason why Ahmedabad was pushed to that particular choice, that why we have to implement. So there was a lot of the railway ministry was involved, home ministry was involved, so it was up in the ministry. And there was a competing location called Pune, which was nearby. And it was, I mean, Pune is, it is called the university town, just like Boston, a lot of universities, a lot of, and it's a lot of defense facilities are there. So politically, it had some clout, but not enough to compete with the Ahmedabad location. And Pune was much easier to implement because we had to just pull in terms of the software, because we didn't have to write the customization or the specific logic for the day-night flip, because reservation logic was very, very complex. Remember, especially when we crossed the day boundary.
Right, because the trains, some of them would turn into sleeper cars, which meant that seats would disappear, so you couldn't sell seats that needed to be overnight.
Overnight, yes. So knowing these facts, one day I was called by somebody in his office that on Saturday morning, he said that, come on, come on, come on, have a seat. Then he offered the cookies and tea and said that, what do you think? How difficult would it be to implement the system in Pune? I said, Pune is very easy. That time we were already in full swing in terms of development for Ahmedabad. So his guy, he wanted to push Pune first so that he gets significant chunk of funding. And then, of course, I have mentioned that funding comes this much, and by the time it starts to come to implementation, it starts to shrink because the layers are taken off as it moves down from department to department and person to person.
Mm-hmm.
So I said Pune is relatively easier. All we have to do is just pull the communication links, and then we can set up the terminal. And then I got the call from my head office saying that we heard that you made a commitment to implement Pune before Ahmedabad, and now we have an internal meeting for that one. So I was there like, why did you? I said I did not commit. I was asked a question like how easy it is, and I said it's easy enough. Just we have to pull the. Why do we have to give that kind of idea? Why do we even say that it's easy? It is not, and that became a very, very, very a challenging thing. And I never faced this kind of situation. Just out of college, living with my parents, and getting into that situation. And then you could imagine how big of a deal that was, because the somebody's political future was relying upon that aspect of the system. If the Pune goes before Ahmedabad, then of course somebody else will be not only getting the whole chunk of money, but also the political, a lot of political gain. So a lot of things were at stake, like what goes first, right? What goes first? So and then, of course, the politics in India is not free of violence. So people do resort to a lot. It's not just small, a lot of violence, even at the smaller level. So it was, and this particular thing was connected with really the big shots of the time. So yes, it was. I was really shaking inside out. I said, "Okay, oh my God, what have I gotten into?" So, and of course, not just me, my team, my managers, my company, and a lot of people were. Of course, the pressure was coming from all the directions. So it was a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, the proverbial padding your estimates. This it's all so much more intense than these days, where I have walked into a similar trap about timing and what goes first, but certainly there were no stakes. Nobody's careers were on the line, and there was no fear of violence.
Oh.
Should I have stuck, should I have put my foot in it and ruined somebody's day? I feel like we could keep going on forever, because I know from our past history that done some, you've got so many amazing stories, but I think we should cut it off here and maybe bring you back another time if people love the stories as much as I do. Because to me, and I was telling Isaac before the show, working with you was one of the things that showed me how to be empathetic as a developer. And if people take anything away from the series, or I would love for them to take away the idea that, look, you're going to write code, and the code is the code, but your code has impact on people in the real world. You can make their lives better. You can make their lives worse.
Right.
You could have coded in corruption, right? You could have probably made yourself, I don't know, fabulously wealthy, but you could have certainly, for somebody who was unmarried and living at home, made it easier to print tickets and gotten yourself a kickback for it, and put a lot of money in your own pocket. And so those are the pressures that I hope we bring to the fore with this series about just, our work matters beyond the bits and the code.
Now, imagine the situation that somebody has come to Mumbai or some big city for work, and his ailing parents are somewhere in a distant remote village, right? And this poor guy does not have any other means to travel to see his father or mother taking the last breath, right? On the deathbed. And imagine if he's unable to get the ticket in time. So how big of an impact it could make on a life. If somebody is an elderly person, for example, and if he or she has to come and stand in the line for hours and hours, it is taking a toll on the health, right? Breaking the back, unable to stand. And it could, we cannot really understand the true depth and true deep impact it could have, but facilitating that, like 20 minutes in and out, you're making the things easy. Plus, if you are standing there, if you're frustrated, if you have other things to do, then you could become angry, and that anger and frustration could be taken out on the person next to you, and a lot of fights could break out, and the fights could erupt into violent fights too. People could lose lives in there, or could get really seriously hurt. By facilitating these things, you are eliminating that kind of frustration, that kind of stress on your head. Right? So you're not just writing the code. If you write the code with a purpose to serve the humanity, how you can make the things easier upon people, then of course, yes, you are getting paid for your efforts, but there are a lot of tangibles repayment, because what you pour in will eventually turn around and come back to you. Because this is what I was thinking when I was looking at the people standing in the line. I imagined my father said, oh, this is what was happening. He was going to get the ticket, and then that was the reason why we could not travel as a family a lot of time. When the things started to open up, no, we could travel as a family to the nearby location. We could have a family vacation. Before that, it was nearly impossible. So when you have a family vacation, get together, it actually is good for your social well-being, good for your health. It reduces the stress. It enhances your relationship with your parents, with your siblings. So writing the code is one thing, but you could imagine the social impact, the physical impact, the health-wise impact, and reducing the corruption, etc. You could imagine how big of an impact your lines of code could bring. So writing the code with a purpose.
Yes. So thank you so much. So if people wanted to reach out and get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to find you?
So you can share my phone number, which you already have, or they can reach out to me using my email. So
okay. And you're also on LinkedIn. I should throw out there.
I'm also on LinkedIn. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Awesome. We'll put the LinkedIn in the show notes. That way people can find you.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been one of my favorite shows. So thank you. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew. And this is Never Rewrite.